All right, so this morning we are going to walk through DocuSign. We are going to go step by step throughout the entire process, as you would from creating an opportunity in Command all the way through confirming your NERDS ID, creating documents, sending them for signature, and uploading them for compliance. As I'm going through the training this morning, please interrupt me with any questions, unmute yourself, ask in the chat box. This training is for you, so I want to make sure that you walk away feeling a lot more comfortable being able to use DocuSign. So to get started, I'm going to go to opportunities, and opportunities is where we manage our sales pipeline as well as manage the specifics of a transaction. So I'm going to go to opportunities, which is the icon of the two hands shaking. Give this a second to load. And then I like to go up here to the list of all opportunities, just makes it a little bit easier for me. And then here I have my opportunity that I created for today, my 1234 Main Street. So I'm going to click into that. I filled out all the information here with my clients' names. I gave my opportunity a name of 1234 Main Street dash Stark Potts, which is our last names, dash buyer. And this is important because we want to have the name of the clients as well as the type of transaction it is for the MCA office. I have the property address here, and this is all really beneficial because when we go into DocuSign, DocuSign is going to pull all this information out of Command, and it's just going to save us a little bit of time of having to double up the amount of work. So once I have my opportunity created, all my information here, I'm going to come here to the Documents tab. And then before we do anything, you'll want to come over here to this drop-down menu on the left-hand side and select Residential. So you'll just give you the select opportunity type, and we'll select Residential. Now you'll notice over here in the top right-hand corner, there is a button that says Start a Transaction. It is very important that when you are creating an opportunity and getting ready to use DocuSign, that you click Start a Transaction. This is the button that is going to create a DocuSign room that is linked to this opportunity. So it allows the two systems to talk together, pull information from one another. If you start a room directly in DocuSign, you are unable to retroactively connect that room to the opportunity. So it's not a huge deal, but one of the main benefits of using DocuSign is its integration with Command, and clicking Start a Transaction is going to give you that full benefit. So I'm going to click Start a Transaction, and it's going to open up another browser tab, and I'm going to log in. One thing I do want to point out here is that if you have pop-up windows blocked, it may not, this new tab may not appear. So double check your URL bar here to see if there's a little red window that's letting you know that it's been blocked. And then always accept pop-ups from DocuSign and or Command. So I'm just going to log in with my information that I used to create my account, or that Scott Leroy Marketing created for me. All right. So now I have my DocuSign room. Up here in the top left-hand corner, I can see my room is called 1234 Main Street dash Stark Potts dash buyer. That is the same exact name as my opportunity. So DocuSign pulled in that name. And then below here, we have the address of this property. So again, that pulled in directly from Command. Now, when you click on Start a Transaction, it's going to take you directly into the Documents tab of Command, or excuse me, of DocuSign. This is going to be where we add all of our GAR forms. But this morning, we are going to act as if we have never used DocuSign before. This is the very first time. And before we do anything, we need to confirm our NERDS ID. This is what's going to let DocuSign know that I am a member of the Realtor Association and that I have access to the Georgia Association of Realtor forms. So the easiest way to do that, well, there are two ways to do it. We're going to walk through both of them. The first one is, in my opinion, the easiest. We can do that right here while we are in the Documents tab. So up here in the top right-hand corner, I'm going to click the Add button. And then I'm going to select DocuSign Forms. And it's going to give me this pop-up window with a handful of logos. I'm going to select the National Association of Realtors. I know in Georgia, we want access to the GAR form. So logically, we'd want to click on the Georgia Association of Realtors logo, but here, click on the National Association of Realtors logo. Then it's going to ask for my NERDS ID. And this is the 9-digit number that you receive when you join the Atlanta Realtor Association. It takes about a week or two to receive that information once you join, but it should be in an email, or you can log into the ARA website. But to make it easy, right here is a link to find your NERDS ID. So I'm going to click on Find Your NERDS ID. It's going to open up another window. And then it gives me the ability to use my last name, my email, and or my real estate license number to find my NERDS ID. So I'm going to use my last name and my license number. And then now here is my 9-digit NERDS ID. So I'm just going to highlight that, copy, and I'm going to close this window because I don't need it anymore. I'll paste in that number, type in my last name, and you do want to make sure that this is the exact same last name that you used when you registered with the Atlanta Realtor Association. If for whatever reason you had a name change, you want to let ARA know so that way they can update it, because if the name is different versus if this name is different versus your file, it won't allow you to have access to the GAR forms. And then I'm going to select Georgia Association of Realtors from this newly alphabetized list. So I'll select Georgia Association of Realtors and then click Validate. You can see you are validated in one association. Now, if this is your very first time confirming your NERDS ID, you'll get a secondary pop-up window here where I don't have it because I've already done this before. And that's going to be for the Georgia Association of Realtors. And it's going to ask you to accept the terms and condition of using those GAR forms. Once you get this window here where it shows all the groups and libraries and all these forms, that lets you know that you have now gained access to the GAR forms. So that is option number 1 to how to confirm your NERDS ID. Now we're going to go to option 2. So this is probably going to be more if anything were to happen to your account and you need to reconfirm your NERDS ID. The easiest way to do that is up here in the top right-hand corner. If you click on your name, your initials or your photo, and then click Preferences. And then over here on the left-hand side, I'm going to select Integrations from the menu. And then here, I can click Add Provider. And it's going to give me that same pop-up window. And I can go through those same steps that we just walked through just a minute ago. Now, I don't have to do it because I'm already have confirmed my NERDS ID, but this is how you would do it here. So pretty simple. Any questions on anything that we've done so far in terms of clicking Start a Transaction, coming into DocuSign, confirming our NERDS ID? All right. So I'm going to go back into our DocuSign room that we just created. Here we go. And I'm going to jump right back into the Documents tab because I want to pretend like this is right where we left off. So we just clicked Start a Transaction in Command. We now have our DocuSign room, and DocuSign, whenever you create a room, is going to put you here in the Documents tab. My first instinct is to just go ahead and start adding forms and start updating them. However, we don't want to do that. Before we add any GAR forms, we want to go to the Details tab of DocuSign, and we want to update the information for this transaction. It's important that we update the Details tab because this is the information that's going to pre-populate our GAR forms once we add them. So I'm going to click on the Details tab, and you'll notice that some of this information is already filled in. You can see here that the screen is kind of in 2 different sections. So like the left-hand 2/3 of the page is going to be all about the actual property that we are using in this transaction. And then the right quarter column is going to be all about the actual parties involved in the transaction. So you can see seller 1, seller 2, Down here, we have buyer one. So here's Tony's name, phone number, email address. That was pulled in directly from command. Same thing with buyer two, Pepper Potts, and then scrolling down, buyer agent one, and this is all my information. So that is the benefit of using DocuSign, is that all this information is going to pull in and it's just going to save you some time. I'm going to scroll back up to the top. Now, there is some information that doesn't get pulled over, which is A-okay. If we want to update or add anything, I'm going to click on the edit button up here in the top right-hand corner. I want to start at the top of the page, work our way down. So let's go here, local currency, US dollars, MLS ID. If you know the MLS ID, you can add that here. Also, I'll just make one up. But you can just paste this in directly from FMLS. Origin of lead, company room status, you don't have to update that. Address, double check and make sure that's all correct. I'm going to update this so it's easier to remember if we just use the same city and postcode as the office. Property type, I'm going to select residential detached. Year built, let's just do 2006. Special circumstances, there aren't any. I will scroll down. Contract amount. Now you can go through here and fill this in. Now, knowing working with buyers, this is going to change. I'm actually just going to leave this blank for now. And then we can come back and fill this in if we need to. And then on the right-hand side, we'll go through and double check the information for the parties. So we see we have seller one, seller two, and listing agent. I'm representing the buyer in this transaction, so I don't need to fill those in. Now, you may feel tempted to be like, oh, well, I can just add in the co-op agent here, and that way I can just send all these documents directly through DocuSign to the agent. I'll reiterate this again later on, but I do not recommend sending documents to co-op agents through DocuSign. And it has to do with the functionality of DocuSign and the way that it considers a document complete when sent for signatures. So don't do it. But I'll mention that again later on. So I'm going to scroll down, just double check my buyer's information. At a minimum, you need your buyer's or your client's name and email address. That's the only information that you need for your clients. That way it's their legal names that they can sign documents with, and then the email address that they will use to receive the documents. I don't need their postcode and their address. Pepper, and then Pepper is using my own personal email for this, and then come down here to my information as the agent. Everything looks good. I don't have another agent working with me, so I'm going to click save here in the bottom right hand corner. And now all the information in the details tab has been updated enough so I can get started working with documents. To start adding your GAR forms, click on the Documents tab. And then up here in the top right-hand corner, we're going to select the Add button, DocuSign Forms. And then over here, we have on the left-hand column, we have groups and libraries. So groups are groups of documents that I've organized to make it easier for you to find the most commonly used forms that you will use when working with a buyer, so buyer's packet, or working with a seller. This list is not exhaustive. It is not going to be everything, but it's going to be probably 90–95% of the documents that you are going to be using when representing either a seller or a buyer. And down here, we have our libraries. So FMLS, Georgia, Greater Alabama MLS. So I don't understand why that's there, but whatever. And then GAR. So these are the important documents. I'm going to click here on the GAR library. This is going to bring up a list of all 180 GAR forms. Every GAR form that you have access to is going to be right here, which is great, but there are a lot of them. So you can use the search bar here to start searching for them. So I can type in buyer brokerage, And now you'll see here, I have two different versions. So I just need to pay attention to make sure that I'm adding the correct version. One thing that you can do in addition to the name of it is you can remember the form number. So I could type in F110, and that's going to pull up that specific buyer brokerage agreement form. This is really going to become important when if you're working with a seller and you are trying to prepare the seller's property disclosure. If you type in seller's property disclosure, you can see we have 4 different versions of the form. And I have in the past, embarrassingly enough, sent the wrong ones to clients because I was in a hurry and trying to get things over really quickly. And it looks sloppy. So just be mindful that when you are searching for documents that you just pay very close attention to which specific version of the form you're using. Now, to make this a little bit easier, that is why we have the groups. So today we are working with a buyer. So I'm going to click on buyer's packet. And here is a list. This looks like it has 30 documents in it. So a little bit easier to search through. So I can look for my buyer brokerage. Here's my exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. And then I also need our purchase and sale. So I click on that. And then let's see, are there any other documents that we'll need for now? Let's do our conventional loan. Perfect. So I have 3 forms selected right here. One thing I want to point out is that in addition to getting the buyer brokerage agreement, that whenever you're working with a client, either buy side or sales side, you do need to have the Rawls Group affiliated marketing and Rawls Group wire fraud prevention disclosure signed. Those forms are not here in this portion of DocuSign. We will add those later on in the envelope. And the reason is because there isn't anything for us to update there. So just know that those 2 disclosures are not here in the forms section. So I have my 3 documents selected. So I'm going to click add selected. And now it's going to add all the document forms. You'll notice I have this room docs folder. Anytime that I add a new document to my room, it's going to default into the room docs folder. So that means if I add it like we just did from the library, or if I upload a document directly from my computer, or I receive a signed completed document, they are all going to default into my room docs folder. That's a-okay. Some people like to have their documents organized by type of document or completed. You can set up your room any which way that you want. No one is going to look at your DocuSign rooms. So if you do want to create folders to organize, you can do so up here in the top right-hand corner. You can click on Actions and then click Add Folder. And then I'm going to create a buyer brokerage agreement folder because I want to have all the documents that I have from my, for my brokerage agreement in one folder. And then when I have actually go under contract, I can have a separate folder for all those. Now, there are 2 ways that you can move forms from one folder to another. The first is that you can select the form that you want by checking the box in the top left-hand corner of the form icon. And then when you do that, you'll get this toolbar up here. You can click on the move icon. So if you roll your mouse over it, a little title box will appear. So I can click move. It's going to ask to select a destination, folder in current room. And then I'm going to select buyer brokerage and click move. And then the page just reloads. And now that form has been moved into the buyer brokerage agreement folder. The other way to move a document is really easy. Is you just roll your mouse over the document icon, click your mouse down, and then drag it into the desired folder. It's that easy. So I don't actually want my purchase and sale agreement in there, so I'm going to move that back. Perfect. Any questions so far about adding documents, where to find documents?
No.
All right, perfect. So now let's get started on updating our documents. So To do that, I'm going to click on the document icon form here. So I'm just going to click on that and it's going to open up. All right. Now with everything, whether it's in Command or DocuSign, I recommend to start at the top and work your way down, filling out all the information. So we will do that. So today with our terms. So today is the 27th. So I'm going to do 5/27/22. Now I do want to point out, when you are writing dates in DocuSign, I recommend putting them in numerical format. In the past, if you were to actually write out May, it would cause an error and it wouldn't save your updates. I think that's been corrected. However, just to be safe, I would put it in numerical format. And so I like to negotiate 6 months. So I'll do 11/27/22. Buyer, the agency relationship not offered by our brokerage is dual agency and sub agency. We do not consent. I negotiated 3% commission. So just go through here and fill out the information. Now, one thing I do want to point out as we're going through these forms today is that I am teaching how to use DocuSign, not how to fill out the forms. The specific information that goes into these forms, please reach out to Lynn and Alita for those questions. Alita teaches a contracts class every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. And then we have a handful of contracts class throughout the year with our affiliate partners. And I believe we're going to have one probably next month or beginning of July to go through the changes of the GAR forms. So I've negotiated a 90-day protected period. Let's scroll through all of this information. Here we have our brochures. So I'll want to check the boxes for any of the brochures that I'm going to send to my clients. I do have in the documents tab, when you add documents, all of the buyer brochures and the seller brochures are already been added into those groups. So you can select the ones that you want. All right, so select those three. And now we have a box for special stipulations. So if there are any special stipulations you like to include in your buyer brokerage agreement, you can type those here. One that I like to include, and again, this is not a lesson on how to fill this out, but I like to include all parties acknowledge and agree this agreement is cancelable at any time with 24-hour written notice. Now, I personally like to include that stipulation because some people get really weird about signing the buyer brokerage agreement. They think it's a contract, and this is not a contract. It's just an agreement, an explanation of how we get paid and our responsibilities that we have to our clients. So I like to include this in here so that way they know that I'm not going to hold their feet to the fire to pay me if anything were to happen. So they can cancel it at any time. If you need any additional stipulations, you can click this box here and then add that F246 and fill those out. Scrolling down, we'll double check. Here's my clients' names and email addresses. Perfect. And then we have our information here for the brokerage. Now you'll notice there are a handful of fields that are empty, and that's okay. Now DocuSign doesn't have these maps. There is a training that I do, it's in a couple of weeks, that'll go through actually setting up templates in DocuSign, so that way these fields can be filled in for you automatically. So I'm just going to fill these in. So MLS office code. All right, broker's phone number, fax number, my phone number, and fill in all of this information because you will get dinged from Lynn and Alita. And you have to make updates, and it just becomes unnecessary work. So perfect, everything's filled out there. And that is the end of the buyer brokerage agreement. Before I click save and close to exit out of this form, any questions on any of the information or how to fill in any of the information that we've gone through?
No.
No.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to click save and close. Be sure to click save and close, because if you just click the X in the top right hand corner, it won't save any of your information. So save and close. All right, so now we are good to go with the buyer brokerage agreement. Now, what I want to do for today's training is we've just filled out the buyer brokerage agreement. Let's go ahead and fill out the purchase and sale agreement and the conventional loan exhibit, and then we can send all of these documents at the same time for signature, just for ease. So I'm going to fill out the purchase and sale agreement. So I'm going to click on that to open it up. All right. And just like we did with the buyer brokerage agreement, we'll start at the top and work our way down, filling in the information. So the offer date. So I'm going to select today, 5/27. It pulls in our property address from the details tab. Here's our MLS number. I'll just get the tax parcel ID. I could pull this from the tax records. And then we'll need our legal description.
So I have a question. I'm sorry. The address that's on the top, is that supposed to be the customer address, the buyer address you're working with, or the actual property address that they're inquiring on purchasing?
This is the purchase and sale agreement. So this is going to be the address for the property we're submitting an offer on.
Okay.
Yeah. So for section 1B, we have legal description. We have a couple of different options of how you want to include your legal description. The first and the most recommended is going to be the attached as an exhibit here too. You can get your legal description directly from our alliance partners. I know Campbell and Brandon has attorneys at cb.law, and you can ask them for a property description or legal description any time of day. They'll get back to you. Then there's KWFA at MMG, and you can reach out to them as well. This is going to be the preferred method, just to make sure that it is the correct legal description. The second option is the deed booking page, and you can get that information directly out of the tax records. All right, so select that one. Purchase price, we are going to submit an offer for $625,000, just made up number. And we want the seller to pay $5,000 in closing costs. And we are going to take possession of this house on 6/30/2022, and we're going to take possession at closing. Our closing attorney law firm is going to be, let's just do Campbell and Brandon. I am abbreviating things here just for time, but I do not recommend abbreviating anything when you are filling out any of these forms. I don't know what their number is, so I'll just put in that number. The holder of earnest money, I'm going to make that Keller Williams First Atlanta. The earnest money we'll do, let's do $10,000, and we'll do this within 3 days of binding. Inspection and due diligence, I'm going to negotiate a 5-day due diligence time period. All right. Lead-based paint. This house was, I believe I selected 2006, so I do not need to include lead-based paint. It's A-okay. Scrolling down here, brokerage relationship, buyer brokerage is Keller Williams First Atlanta. I'm going to remove realty here just to save some space. We do have permission from Lynn and Alita that's fine. And I am representing this buyer as a client. And then the listing agent, we can put Harry Norman, and they are representing their seller as a client. Scrolling down, we have a material relationship disclosure. So none of us are family or married or anything like that. So I'm just going to put NA. And then this offer is going to expire at 12 p.m. on 5/28/2022. So we're going to give them 24 hours to review our offer and get back to us. Then we're going to continue to scroll through. Here's all the explanation information. Lots of explanation. Perfect. All right, so now here we get to our exhibits. So I'm going to select all the exhibits that we have here. So we have our conventional loan exhibit. So I'm going to have that as A. And then we have our legal description. So I'm going to have that as exhibit B. And then we would theoretically have our seller's property disclosure, and I can make that C. Now, let's say, for instance, I haven't received the seller's property disclosure. I can add below here a special stipulation. Oh, wow, they redid this. Perfect. All parties acknowledge and agree for the seller to provide the seller's property disclosure within 24 hours of binding to be added as exhibit C to the contract. So that is the first one. And then if you have any additional stipulations, just type those in here. They've updated this, so now there's actually room to put stipulations here, which is wonderful. Because before it was like a little teeny tiny box. So go through and write all your stipulations here. If you need additional stipulations, check this box here and use form 246. Make sure we have all of those exhibits and addenda. Perfect. I'm going to scroll down here, double check we have our client's name and email address. Now, one thing I do want to point out, and this is personal preference, and you can, however you want to run your business is A-okay with me, but I don't like to share my client's contact information with co-op agents. 9 times out of 10, your co-op agent is going to be very respectful of the relationship that I have or that you have with your clients, but there may be a time where that listing agent or that co-op agent isn't respectful and they try to go around you and maybe say, hey, if you work directly with me, you can save you X% or do something weird and shady. So I don't like to share my client's contact information. My first thought would be to delete my client's email address off this purchase and sale agreement. However, do not do that. Anytime that you edit or delete information from a pre-populated field on any of the GAR forms, it will make that same edit or deletion from the details tab. So if I delete my client's contact information on the purchase and sale agreement, it will then delete it from the details tab. And then when I go to send my documents for signature, my clients won't have an email address to receive the forms for signature. So I will show you when we actually go into the envelope to send these documents, how to block the email address, so that way your co-op agent doesn't have access to their contact information. All right, scrolling down. When I come down here, double check all the information, fill in any of the missing information. All right. And now you can come over here and you can fill out your co-op agent's name and information here. So we can just do John Doe, license number, and you can fill out all this other information. But again, still do not recommend sending any documents through DocuSign directly to a co-op agent. So now we've got to the bottom of the purchase and sale agreement. I'm going to click Save and Close. Now that we've completed the purchase and sale agreement, let's go through and fill in the conventional loan exhibit. So this will be your financing contingency exhibit. Today we are going to use conventional loan. Perfect. So with anything, start at the top, work your way down. We'll make this exhibit A, since that's what we designated the conventional loan exhibit to be on the purchase and sale agreement. We have our offer date of today. We have our property address. This is going to be your first mortgage loan. My clients are going to be putting 20% down, so they're going to be taking a loan out for 80% of the purchase price. This will be a 30-year loan, and they are, let's just do 5.25% interest rate. This is a fixed rate and institutional. We don't need a second mortgage. Use of a particular lender. I'm going to leave this blank. It was recommended to me by Lita when I first got my license to go ahead and leave this section of your conventional loan exhibit blank. And again, not teaching you how to fill out these forms because I'm not a compliance worker or a lawyer, but recommended leaving this section blank here because in the event that your client uses multiple lenders, and let's say they get denied, the co-op agent and closing attorney will only accept a loan denial letter from the specific lender or bank mentioned here. So let's say I originally started working with Atlantic Bay, and so I typed in Atlantic Bay here for the approved lender. But then after talking with Supreme, my client's like, hey, I want to work with Supreme. Perfect, no worries. So we go all the way to the end of our financing contingency, and Supreme's like, hey, sorry, you guys unfortunately are denied for this loan. Your debt to income ratio is too high. Well, let's say I then send the loan denial letter from Supreme to my co-op agent, and they're going to say, this is great. Thank you for letting me know. However, you told me you were working with Atlantic Bay. Unfortunately, your clients will not get their earnest money back unless we get a loan denial letter from Atlantic Bay. So just small little things, but if you leave this blank, then they can accept a loan denial letter from anyone. Perfect. All right, so scrolling down, buyer financing contingency. So how many days after going binding will we wait for our clients to get that loan approval? In this market, 0 is probably going to be your best. Hopefully your clients are already pre-approved, but for today, I'm just going to go ahead and do 21 days, 3 weeks from binding. Scrolling down, appraisal contingency. I'll select 5 days or 25 days. And then we'll scroll down here. Perfect. Fill in any missing information. And then click save and close. All right. Any questions on the documents portion of DocuSign, either adding documents, editing, updating them, finding them, anything before we move on to sending the documents for signature?
No.
Okay, perfect. All right, so once you've gone through and you've completed filling in the forms that you need, our next step is to send these for signature. The way that we do that in DocuSign is through an envelope. The way that Michael New explained envelopes to me, and I really like this analogy, so I like to share it with you, is think of an envelope in DocuSign like a manila folder in real life. And let's say I've printed out all my purchase and sale agreements. I've written everything in by pen. I've now organized all my forms, and I put them in that manila envelope and place it on the corner of my desk until I see my clients. Then when I see my clients, I hand them that manila folder, and I say, please review and sign all of these documents. The envelope in DocuSign is the same as that manila folder. It's just a way to organize and package those documents to hand them over to my clients for review. There are 2 ways that you can make an envelope in DocuSign. The first way is when you're here in the Documents tab, is you can select the documents that you want to send for signature. So for today, I want to send all of these. Whenever you select a form, this toolbar will appear at the top, and you can roll your mouse over to the pen icon, and it'll say Create Envelope. You can click Create Envelope here, and then it's going to create an envelope with these 3 selected forms already added to it. This is going to become really helpful when you're further along in the transaction, because you're going to have a ton of forms in here, and it's going to be easier for you just to go ahead and select the forms right here in the Documents tab versus in just a moment how I show you to do it in the envelope section. The other way to create an envelope is to click into the envelopes tab. And then up here in the top right-hand corner, I'm going to select new. And then this will be the same view as the envelope if we had selected option number 1. And with everything, we'll start at the top and work our way down. So envelope name. So I'm going to name this 1234 Main Street purchase and sale agreement 52722. You will send numerous envelopes throughout a transaction, probably 10, 20, 30, 40, however many, especially if you have to submit a ton of offers. So please be sure to name your envelope something that you can go back and reference. There will be times where you have to go back and double check when a form was sent and when it was signed, if there was an error, if you need to make edits. So please be sure you name it something that you can always reference. Their next section is going to be to add documents to the envelope. So we have 3 different options here: room docs, use a template, and more. So I want to add in the 3 forms that we just updated from the room doc. So I'm going to select room docs here. And it's going to show me a list of all the documents that I have access to. So we have conventional loan, buyer brokerage, and purchase and sale. I'm going to click add selected. And it's going to add those 3 forms to my envelope. As I mentioned earlier, we still have to include our Rawls Group, wire fraud, and affiliate marketing disclosure. The way that we add those forms is right here in the envelopes tab, and I'm going to click use a template. The reason these forms are added to DocuSign as a template is twofold. One, there's no fields on either of these forms for you to fill in, make edits, or anything. These forms are just a notice to our clients, and that way they can just be aware of the wire fraud prevention as well as our affiliated marketing partnerships. The second reason is that these forms can change relatively often depending on who our affiliated partners are, any updates to laws and regulations regarding wire fraud. So it is much easier for us to have access as the market center to make those changes as a template versus having DocuSign as a company review and upload that form. So to add those 2 disclosures, I'm going to click use a template. And then I'm going to select the shared with me over here on the left-hand side. And then we're going to give this a second. It usually takes a minute to load. And now this is pulling up all of the templates that the MCA office has shared with me. So there are a handful of different options in here. We'll just give it time to load. I promise it will load, even though it's super slow. All right. So you can see here we have a bunch of different templates, and I need the affiliated marketing and wire fraud disclosure. So I'm going to scroll down. You can see here I have a buyer-affiliated marketing and buyer-wire fraud. If I scroll down, I have a seller version of those same forms. So seller-affiliated marketing and seller-wire fraud. These are the same exact disclosures. However, you want to select the version of the disclosures based on which side of the transaction you are representing. So today we're working with a buyer, so I'm going to select the buyer version. The only difference between these 2 different versions is going to be signing permissions. So the buyer versions are going to have the signature fields mapped to buyer 1 and buyer 2, and vice versa for the seller. Those signing fields will be mapped to seller 1 and seller 2. So I'm going to click on the buyer version and then click add selected. And it's going to add those 2 forms to the envelope. Now you'll notice here we have all of the forms that have been added, and they're just in alphabetical order. However, I want my forms in a specific order for my clients to review and sign. The first form I want them to sign is the buyer brokerage form. I want to go ahead and set up that relationship with my clients before we actually review a purchase and sale agreement. So I'm going to just click on the form icon, hold my mouse down, and drag it into the desired position. Next, I want to have my affiliated marketing. So I'm going to roll my mouse over the icon, hold my mouse down, and then drag it into that next position. Same thing with the wire fraud prevention. And then I want my conventional loan exhibit to be last, so I'm just going to drag that over here. So now I have them in my specific order of buyer brokerage, disclosures, purchase and sale, and then conventional loan. Additionally, if I had a legal description and all those other exhibits, I would add those here as well. So now we have our forms added and in the correct order. You have to put the forms in your desired order here at this part of the envelope. You are unable to change the order when we go to the next screen. So just know that if you want them in a specific order, you have to do it here. Also, there's like a weird thing with DocuSign that if I click save and close and then I go back to the documents tab, make some edits, and then come back here, it will just reorder the documents and it won't save them when I put them back in my desired order. I don't understand why. That's just the way DocuSign works. All right. So now that we've added our documents, our next step is to add recipients to the envelope. This is a very important part of DocuSign. 9 times out of 10, when I talk with agents and they're having issues with their clients being able to sign the documents, it's because of this part of DocuSign. We want to add our recipient, so I'm going to click on the Add Recipient drop-down menu, and we have 3 options: pre-tagged roles, room participants, and email addresses. Anytime pre-tagged roles is available as an option, 100% of the time, select pre-tagged roles. It's very important that you click on pre-tagged roles because all the initial fields, all the signature fields, all the fields where your clients have to write something in are all mapped to those pre-tagged roles. If you select room participants or email address, you will have to manually add every signature field, initial field, text field, everything. It's going to take a lot of time and you don't want to do it, I promise. So be sure to select pre-tagged roles. So I'm going to click pre-tagged roles. And it's going to give me this pop-up window with all of the roles available on all the documents that we have. So I'm going to select buyer 1, buyer 2, and buyer agent because those are my clients and myself. And then for buyer 1, I'm going to come over here to this drop-down menu and I'm going to select Tony's name from the drop-down. All right. And then for buyer 2, I'm going to select Pepper Potts. And then for buyer agent, I'm going to select myself. Now your name may be here twice. That's a-okay. Just pick whichever one. It'll go to the same person. And I'm going to click add selected. Now you'll notice I did not include the listing agent here because, as I've mentioned multiple times, I do not want to send documents to a co-op agent directly through DocuSign. Because every single person on that I would include here in this pre-tagged roles has to sign the forms for them to be considered completed. So if I'm sending a purchase and sale agreement over to the listing agent and we're going to end up negotiating back and forth, I will not have my client signatures on anything because that listing agent will not have signed that form. So I'm going to click add selected. And it's going to add our recipients. Now there's a handful of information that we're going to walk through here. Now to the left of each one of our signature of our signers, there's a little box and it has the number 1 in it. That box designates the signing order of these forms. Now the system is going to default to 1, which means that everybody gets the ability to sign at the same exact time. However, I want to put my clients in a specific order. I want buyer 1 to review and sign first, then buyer 2, and then I want it to come to me last. One of the benefits of having me sign last is that I'm able to make my buyer brokerage agreement binding when I sign. This will just save me a couple of steps and a couple of minutes in the future. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. To change the signing order, it's super easy. Just put your mouse into that box, highlight the number, and then change it to the order which you want that person to sign. and the system will automatically recalculate the order. I'm going to make myself last. So I'll make myself third. And now I have my signing order. Here we have our client's name and email addresses. This is pulled directly from the details tab. So we want to make sure that we leave that there. To the right of that, we have a drop-down menu. The default is going to be needs to sign. If I click on this drop-down, it's going to give me a handful of different permissions that my clients have access to when signing the documents. Needs to sign is going to mean that they need to go through review and click sign and complete. The next is needs to view. This is if you need to send a form to somebody and you need them to actually look at it, but they don't have to actually sign it. Just know that they actually do have to go in, view the forms, and then click finished for it to be considered complete that they have viewed the forms. The next is receives a copy. This is something that you may want to do if you need to send a copy to, you want the system to automatically send a copy to your lender or your closing attorney, or if you're working with buyers who maybe their parents are involved or a spouse, but they're not actually going to be signing on the form. They just want to be in the loop. You can include them as receives a copy, and specify a recipient you don't need, and then a witness for a signer you likely won't need. If you do, let me know, or you can work with your closing attorney. And then to the right of the needs to sign drop down, we have more, and this gives us two options. The first is to add an access authentication. If you're working with clients that are uncomfortable with e-signature, they're afraid that someone's going to break into or hack into their email and then start signing all these DocuSign forms, and then they're going to be under contract for a house they don't know about, you can add this access authentication code. This is just going to be an added layer of security for your clients. So I'm going to click add access authentication, and then it's going to give me the ability to type in any access code. So I can just type in 12345 or ABCD 123, whatever you want. And then when Tony receives the email to sign, I'm gonna have to say, hey, Tony, just so you know, before you're able to sign, you need to type in 12345 to confirm that you are who you say you are, and then you'll have the ability to sign. So I could do it just for Tony. I could do it for Tony and Pepper, whatever. I don't actually want to include that today, so I'm going to click discard. And then our other option is to add a private message. So if I want to set a reminder or a private message to one individual that's receiving this envelope, this is how I would do it. And I would say, hi, Tony, please review and confirm the information on paid, on conventional loan exhibit is correct. Thank you, Nick. And let's say I added this in here just because I've been working with Tony mainly on the lending information. I don't know. In another example is if I were working with the seller, I can include seller want to be sure to fill in the disclosures. So the seller's property disclosure and community association and lead-based paint. So I'm going to leave that little note there just so you can see how it shows up. Any questions on adding recipients or the permissions for those?
No.
All right. So continuing down, now we have a message. The email subject is going to default to please DocuSign. I recommend that you leave that in there, but I'm going to add 1234 Main Street purchase and sale agreement because I want to make sure that my clients know that this DocuSign email is specific to a property that we've been talking about, and they know what the form is. And I can write a quick little message. Hi, Tony and Pepper, please review and sign the forms. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, Nick. So there's my little message. Once I've gone through and I've finished setting up the envelope, so I've given the envelope a name, I've added the documents and I put them in the desired order. I've added pre-tagged roles, recipients, and I've written a message. I'm going to click the next button over here in the top right-hand corner. And this is going to take me to the envelope editor. And this is where I can go through, double check, make sure that all my signature fields are correct. make sure that I'm not missing any information. And if there are any fields missing, that I can, add that information back in. So there is a lot of information here. So let's kind of walk through the layout before we actually look at any of the forms. So starting up here in the top right-hand corner, we have this little go back arrow. In the event that you see an error or you need to go out of here, you can click here and go back. The system saves any updates that you make probably like every 3 to 4 seconds. So more often than not, the system will save your edits. Below that, you can see here, I have, it says Tony Stark and it has a yellow circle. And then there's a drop-down menu and it shows all the recipients of this envelope with a colored circle to the left of their name. You'll notice it's currently on Tony, and then all of the standard fields below here are highlighted yellow. That lets me know that anytime I see a field in this on these documents that is highlighted yellow, it is assigned to Tony. If I want to assign something for Pepper, I can click Pepper, and now all the fields are blue. So I can easily identify that Pepper is blue. And same thing for myself as purple. All the purple fields are assigned to me. I'm going to go back to Tony. Below here are all the standard fields. These are all the fields that you're going to potentially add, whether it be a signature field, initial, date signed, name, text, drop down, anything like that. Here in the middle of the screen is going to be our preview of the actual form. This is where we're just going to go through and double check all of the information. Over here on the right-hand side is we have thumbnails of all of the different documents. So you can see here all the documents that we've added to the envelope, and they are in the specific order that I designated previously. So I can click on this little drop-down menu and it's going to show me little thumbnails. So I can scroll through. And then when I get to a page that has an assigned field on it, it's going to put these little stickers up here in the top left-hand corner. And that's going to let me know that there's something on that page that is assigned to each one of these parties. So I can click on that. And now here's the signature field and date signed already added, because remember, we selected pre-tagged roles. So all these signature fields are added here. Then I can come down here, and then here's my signature and my date signed. So that is the layout. Now let's go through and double check all the information, make sure everything is correct. So I'm just going to breeze through here really quickly, make sure that I have my correct agency and brokerage information, commission. We'll just scroll through here really quickly. All right. Client signatures look good. My signature looks good. Now, remember, I set myself up to be the third and final signer. The benefit of that is I can make this buyer brokerage agreement binding when I sign it. To do that, I'm going to select my name from the drop down up here in the top left-hand corner. And then I'm going to select a text box. And I'm just going to drag that text box over here. And I'm going to add that in the space on the form that I want it. So there's a text box. I'm going to right mouse click it, copy, paste. This is one thing I really like about DocuSign, and it will paste in that same format, the same size. And then we need to add the date. So I can just add the date signed here, and that way the system will automatically add the date. Now you'll notice that this text field is filled in with the color purple. Whenever you click on any field, this menu will appear on the top or the right-hand side, and you'll notice it is a required field. Required fields mean that DocuSign is going to stop your client or yourself to fill in and or sign that specific field before they are able to move on to any other fields on the form. If I uncheck required field, you'll notice that the field is now just outlined in purple. It's not actually filled in. But I do want this to be required field because I want the system to stop me when I get to this portion of the document. I'm just going to continue to scroll through. Here's our affiliated marketing disclosure. We have buyer 1. And I'll see, for whatever reason, buyer 2 is not here. So that is a mistake. So we just want to double check it. So I'm going to click Pepper Potts. I'm going to add a Pepper signature here. And then date signed here. So now both parties are signing that. We'll scroll down to our wire fraud. Same thing. I don't know. This is very strange. I'll talk with Michael New as to why buyer 2 signature is not popping up here. Click name and then date signed. All right. We'll just keep scrolling. Now we get to a purchase and sale agreement. Again, just double checking everything, make sure all the boxes are checked correctly. Right here at the bottom of the page, we have our buyer's initials. So that's good. Keep scrolling. All right. We are scrolling. Again, double checking our exhibits. Good to go. Our stipulations. Perfect. All right. So now we've gotten to the signature page of our purchase and sale agreement. Earlier, I told you I don't like to share my client's information, so I want to hide my client's contact information. The easiest way to do that is to come over here to the far left and click on the pencil icon. And when you roll your mouse over that, it's pre-fill tools. And then I can select the line. So I'm going to select line. And then I'm just going to drag a line over my client's email address. Now, when I click and add it, I do get that menu box over here. So I have a couple different things I want to change. So first, I want to change the color. Pick color. I want to make that black. And then the thickness, I want to make that a 10 thickness. So that way it covers up my client's contact information. Now, I will say this, a black box is not the most beautiful thing to see on a purchase and sale agreement, but it doesn't matter. It still protects my client's privacy and does what it's intended to do. So I'm going to right mouse click, or I'm just going to hit Command C, Command V to copy paste that. And then I'm going to drag that one over buyer 2. So now I've protected both my client's contact information. So I'm good to go there. Here's my information, signature, good to go. Then we have our conventional loan exhibit. Perfect. We have buyer 1, buyer 2. Here's my signature. We are good to go. Now we've gone through, we've double checked all of the fields, added the missing fields. Before we send it, I have the ability to preview to make sure that all the forms are all set up correctly, all the signature fields are mapped correctly. To do that, I can click on preview. And up here in the top left-hand corner, it's going to give me the option to preview these documents as each one of the recipients. So I can just select Tony. And then here in the middle, it gives me the option to change between a desktop view, a tablet-friendly view. So you'll notice it's a little bit smaller, and then a mobile view. The reason I point this out is because it's important, because you may be working with clients and they're like, hey, we have got to get this offer in immediately, but we have a dinner reservation at this restaurant we've been trying to go to for months and we don't want to cancel. So that way we can be home to sign the forms. And I can say, you know what, go to dinner. Let me fill out the purchase and sale agreement. I'm going to send all these over to you. I'll send you a text message when they're in your inbox. And then you can just pull up your phone while you're at the table and quickly review and sign and still enjoy your evening. Now, it's going to be hard for them to read all the information. So there is going to be a level of trust that's required, but they do have the ability to sign on their phone. And to see what that signing experience is going to be like, I can click start, and it's going to run me through signing all the fields as buyer 1. Now, this is all just a template, or I'm sorry, a preview, so it doesn't actually sign it, but it just gives me the idea of what it's going to be like. Once I'm done with the preview, I'm going to click the X here, and then I'm going to click send. Now I'm going to send. Awesome. So now it lets me know that I'm waiting on others. This has been sent to my client. So I'm going to pull up my email so I can log in. All right, so here we go. Now you can see here, I have my email from myself via DocuSign. Please DocuSign 1234 Main Street, PSA. Click on that. I'm going to scroll down here. Here's my private message to just Tony. Make sure the information is correct on the conventional loan exhibit. My email to both, my message to both Tony and Pepper. I'm going to click on Review Documents. And this is going to be exactly what it's like for your clients to sign. So that way you know what it's like for them. So your client is going to click Agree to use electronic records and signatures. Continue. Start. Sign. Confirm signature. Adopt and sign. 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 Initial. Sign. Sign. Now we finished signing. You'll notice there's a finish button here at the bottom, and there's a finish button up here in the top right-hand corner. Your clients must click the finish button for DocuSign to record that they have actually signed all of these forms. So I'm going to click sign or finish, excuse me. Now we're going to get a pop-up window that's asking us to create a DocuSign account. Your clients do not need to create a DocuSign account if they do not want to. I'm going to click no thanks. Now I've received the you've finished signing. Make sure your clients know that they need to see the you've finished signing page to let them know that they are 100% complete with signing these forms. If for whatever reason they don't get the you've finished signing page, they likely have not completed signing, and thus the forms will not be sent to signer number 2 to then go to signer number 3. So I'm going to close here, and then I'm going to open up my personal email, because now Pepper has received the email to sign. Here it is. Scroll down. Hi, Tony and Pepper. Please review and sign. You'll notice that Pepper does not have a private message. Good to go. So I'm going to click review and sign. It's going to be the same thing that we just walked through with Tony. Pepper is going to agree to use electronic records and signatures. Continue. Start. Sign. We're going to confirm signature, adopt and sign, 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 initial, sign, sign. And now Pepper is complete. Pepper is going to click finish. Ask her to create an account, and we're going to select no thanks. And now Pepper has received the you finished signing page. So I'm going to close out of here. All right. And now I'm going to go over here to my email, and it says, now I have the turn to sign. So I'm going to click here, please sign, review documents. Please review the documents below, continue, start, sign. Now remember, I set up the buyer brokerage agreement so that way I can make it binding when I sign. So I'm going to make this binding at 12 p.m. and then automatically adds the date there. So now when my clients receive this document, it's going to be binding, and that's good to go. And it's going to be one less thing for Lynn and Alita to have to remind me to do. So I'm going to click next, sign, sign, and now I'm finished. So I'm going to click finish. I do not want to log in. No, thank you. And now I've received the you finished signing. So all parties have finished signing, which is great. Now, one thing I want to show you here is when I go back into my email as a client, once everyone has signed all the documents on an envelope, DocuSign automatically sends an email to every participant of that envelope with the signed completed versions. So in the state of Georgia, it is required that once our clients sign a document that they need to have that document for their records. This is just a quick, easy way to make sure that they have these documents for their records. So you can hear all the forms. I can just open that up, scroll all the way to the bottom. Here's all the signatures. It's binding, good to go. So your clients do receive them, so they have them for their records. So that is one of the really cool things that I like about DocuSign. So now that we've completed signing, I'm going to go back into my DocuSign account. I'm going to refresh the page. So here are my envelopes. It lets me know it's been completed. I can click into the envelope. It lets me know that everyone is signed and the date and time that they signed. You can view your documents here, but we don't need to do that because we're going to look at those in just a minute. I just want to state for you guys, there are literally like 3 kittens right outside my window. I don't know what they're doing, but they're super cute and kind of distracting. So I'm going to click the X here to get out of the envelope. And now I'm going to go back into my Documents tab. I'm going to scroll down to my Room Docs folder. And now you can see all of these documents with the green checkbox that say signed. Now, remember, I told you anytime that we have a new document that's added to the room, whether it is added from the DocuSign forms, uploaded, or a signature completed, it's going to default into the Room Docs folder. So I'm going to select all the documents that are pertaining to my buyer brokerage agreement. So my affiliated marketing, buyer brokerage, and wire fraud disclosures. I'm going to select those forms. I'm going to click on the move icon, select destination, folder in current room, buyer brokerage agreements, and then move. So now I have all my signed documents in the correct folders. Now you also see here we have the certification form, certification document. Anytime that you send a envelope and it's completed, it will include this. This just shows the timestamp of everyone's signatures. You don't need it. So if you want to, you can select this document and then archive it. You aren't able to delete anything in DocuSign, which is very beneficial. So I'm going to click archive, and it just kind of helps clean things up. Another recommendation that I have is that you'll notice that the forms are just all right now in alphabetical order, which is fine. But as you go through a transaction, you're going to send lots of documents, and you may even send the same document over and over and over again, like the purchase and sale agreement. If you have to submit multiple offers, you're going to use this same form every single time you write an updated offer. Well, it gets kind of confusing. What I would recommend doing is up here where it says name A to Z. This gives us the ability to sort and organize the forms. I recommend organizing them based on when they were added, newest. And now it'll show me all the forms as they have been added into the my folder. So if I have to send multiple purchase and sale agreements, I will have my most recent one here. Doesn't do a great job of explaining it or showing it here with this example, but as you have a more full room, it'll make sense. Before we jump back into Command, what questions do you have on the creating an envelope, adding fields, editing, double checking, signing, any of what we've gone over so far? All right. So now that we've gotten our buyer brokerage agreement signed, we have our purchase and sale, we need to upload these forms into Command for compliance review. Now, one thing I do want to state is that today I do not have a binding contract, but we're just going to pretend that this is a binding contract for today's example. So now I need to upload these forms for compliance for Lynn and Alita to review. So I'm going to come over here to Command. I'm going to come to my under contract folder. And now we're going to start uploading documents. Now, because we created the room and it's linked to the opportunity, I can upload these forms directly from DocuSign. So I can come here, it says attach files from, it'll default to DocuSign, and then it's going to ask me which folder. For my purchase and sale agreement, I'm going to select the Room Docs folder. And then I can select from this drop-down menu here, either version of a signed PDF. So I can select the purchase and sale agreement. And now it's going to add that form. I can scroll down to my loan exhibit. And now you'll notice that I don't have the ability to add that purchase and sale agreement another time. It's already been associated with the form. So I'm going to click conventional loan exhibit. Now it's added that form. Now I need to add the buyer brokerage agreement. So I have to come back up to the top, select working folder, buyer brokerage. And then I'm going to scroll down here, my buyer brokerage form. I'm going to select the GAR buyer brokerage agreement signed. I'm going to do the same thing for the Rawls Group affiliated marketing and the Rawls Group wire fraud. And then I would go through and I would add any additional documents. If you have a document that you have to upload from your computer, the way that you would do that is you would click here for attach forms and click on drop down, and then you would select computer manual. And now it'll give me the ability to browse or drag and drop the file here directly from my computer. Once you have gone through and uploaded all of your documents, you're going to click on submit to MC. That's going to submit these forms to the Market Center and let Lynn and Alita know that there are forms that they need to review to make sure everything is compliant, and they will provide feedback for you. That is the training for DocuSign this morning. We've gone through everything from the opportunity to creating the room, updating the details, adding documents, setting them for signature, and now uploading into Command. What questions can I answer for you? Is there anything that I can clarify or show you again this morning?
Just one quick question. How often do we submit to MC? Do we do it like every time we get a new signature, new form or something, or wait till the end?
So great question. When you are working with a buyer, the first time you submit documents to MC is going to be once you go binding under contract.
Okay.
So you would submit the buyer brokerage agreement, affiliate disclosures, as well as the purchase and sale agreement and all that once it's binding. Then once you're going and you're moving through the transaction and you get some, so maybe an amendment or amendment to address concerns, every time you upload a new form, it'll automatically submit that new form for compliance review.
Gotcha. So you don't have to click submit every time.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Unless you have to manually change something and then it'll let you resubmit. Now, if you're working with a seller, as soon as you get that listing agreement signed, then you submit to MC, so that way they can review the listing agreement, and then you would resubmit once you go binding under contract.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just to confirm, we submitted for every transaction.
Absolutely. Yes, correct. Next week, I guess next Thursday, my Take Command training is going to be submitting contracts and getting paid in Command. So it's going to kind of build on what we just learned on how to actually send the forms and send for signature. And it's going to be, how do we get everything to Lynn and Alita for review? How do we submit forms to the MCA office? How do I get paid? All of that. So that's a great next step for the process.
And what day did you say that was again?
Next Thursday at 10 a.m.
At 10. Okay. Thank you.
You are welcome.
So if you submit a document to them after hours, will they still be able to view it, or do we have to wait like the next day for them to get back with us after the review?
So I would just go ahead and submit it at any time of the day. I think Lynn and Alita will, if they're not doing anything, we'll check their email and see that there's a form for them, after hours. But they're usually pretty quick. I would say they will review documents usually within 24 hours, definitely within 48 hours of being submitted. Any other questions?
No, that's all for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining me. I know it was a long training. Start to play around in DocuSign, get comfortable with it, create some test rooms. So that way you can get used to how to send those documents before you actually have a client that you need to submit an offer for, and it's 8 o'clock on a Saturday night. So please let me know what questions you have. You can always call, text me if anything pops up. And I do have the link in my email signature to set up some one-on-one time if you like that as well. have a great rest of your Friday and a wonderful holiday weekend.
You
Thank you.
too.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.